So another thing we need to be able to factor are trinomials, right? We need to be able to go backwards like with the box. But before we do that, we need to work on our skills around being able to sort of problem solve with a puzzle. So like that third warm-up question, what two numbers multiply to -90 but add to -9? That is a skill that you're going to need to have to be able to factor trinomials, factor something with 3 terms. And so tomorrow we're actually going to get into that. But today we're just going to practice this skill where you're finding those two numbers. So it's sort of like a puzzle. So this is kind of the puzzle part of it. What two numbers multiply to something but add to a different number? So we use diamonds to kind of organize our thoughts on this. So you need to get used to being able to read these diamonds. The way we handle these diamonds, and they show it up here, is we put whatever the number is to multiply to here, whatever the thing adds to is there, and then we put our answers here, the factors, right? The two factors that multiply to this but add to that. And like I said, it's not going to be obvious today how this connects to factoring unless you've done this and remember it. But tomorrow it's going to be obvious how it relates to factoring. So I want you to practice this skill today and just think of it like a puzzle. So just like on the warm-up, when we said what two numbers multiply to something but add to another, right? So here, the question is, what two numbers multiply to 24 but add to 10? So multiply to 24 but add to 10. That's the question that this diamond is asking you. Multiply to 24 but add to 10. So this is a diamond that asks you that question, and you need to find the two numbers and put them here. Okay? So I need to figure out which two numbers multiply to 24 but add to 10. Now, there are actually an infinite set of numbers that add to 10. Like 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7. And those are the easy ones to think about. But there's also -1 and 11, -2 and 12. There's also 10.5 and -0.5. So there are an infinite set of numbers that add to 10. Okay? But as far as how many numbers will really multiply to 24, there's a very limited set once we are only talking about integers. So I want to start with this. I want to start checking out what multiplies to 24, because that's just a limited set. And there's lots of ways you can go about this. You can list all the numbers that you think multiply to 24. I find that pretty easy. So I'm going to list the pairs that multiply by 24. 1 and 24 multiply to 24. 2 times 12 multiply to 24. 3 times 8 multiply to 24. 4 times 6 multiply to 24. I could do 5 doesn't go into 24, 6 does, but now I'm back. So notice what I did here. I started with, does 1 go into 24? Of course it does, 24 times. Does 2? Of course it does, 12 times. Does 3? Yeah, 8 times. Does 4? Yeah. And then I tried 5, but 5 doesn't go in. And then I tried 6 and I realized I was back at the beginning. I was back here. I'm going to work my way backwards now. So I have now found all of the factors of 24. And you can use your calculator to do this. If you have a bigger number, you can use your calculator to do that division. 24 divided by 1 is 24, right? 24 divided by 2 is 12. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So you can see 8 times 3 is 24. 12 times 2 is 24. So you can use your calculator to go through systematically. But I do recommend, as a strategy, working from this first. And now what we want to do is we want to see, do any of these pairs add to 10? This does not, this does not, this does not, but this does. So I found my two missing values, 4 and 6. So the two skills here are to be able to read this, right? So knowing that this is a question about multiplying to this but adding to that, and then finding the two missing factors that would multiply to that but add to that. So you do these 5, and then I'm going to also do one over here. It's a little bit different. What if we have a variable there now? Okay, so if we have a variable it's not that different. The question is still, what multiplies? So, what multiplies to negative 36x squared, but adds to 9x? Okay, that's the question that this diamond is asking us. So really, it's a very similar process, right? Mostly, we need to worry about the numbers. But we also need to think about the variable a little bit, right? We know if we want something to add to something with an x, it needs to have an x with it, right? So it needs to have an x with it. And then x times x is x squared. So that kind of takes care of that. Something with an x and something with an x will add to something with an x, but they'll multiply to something with an x squared. So here we've handled the variable part of it already. I know that this term is going to need an x and this term is going to need an x. So now we can just handle the number part of it. So I'm going to work on what multiplies to negative 36. So again, I'm going to start with 1. So 1 times negative 36 is 36, negative 36, right? 2 times negative 18. 3 times negative 12. 4 times negative 9. 5 doesn't go into it, but 6 goes into it. 6 times negative 6 works. And then if I do try 7, 8, 9, now I'm kind of just working my way back up. So now I know that I found all of my possible factors of negative 36. So I need to figure out if any of these add up to 9, right? So this doesn't. This would add up to 0, right? This would add up to negative 5, so that doesn't work. This adds up to negative 9. Well, that's interesting. This adds up to negative 16. This adds up to negative 35. Okay, so it looks like I didn't find anything that added up to positive 9. But if you come back here and look, this one adds up to negative 9. So really, if I just change the signs, this one to a plus and this one to a minus, they would still multiply to a negative 36. Negative times a positive is still a negative. But now they add to a positive 9, right? So if I just make the bigger number positive and the smaller number negative, I found my pair, right? So this needs to be negative 3x and positive 12x. Okay, so finish the squares for the lesson today.